Welcome to Season 8, Episode 28 of the Ubuntu podcast. In this episode, we're going to be discussing restoring apps. We'll also have some command line love, and we'll go over your feedback. I'm Alan. Joining me this week is Mark.
Hello.
Martin.
Hello.
And Laura.
Hiya.
How are you all doing?
Good, thank you.
Not bad.
Very well.
Super. What have you been up to, Laura?
I've been trying again to learn Java.
Again? How many times have you learnt Java?
I started learning last year and got really into it, and then moved house and stopped for a while. And so I'm trying to catch back up with it again. Because as a helpful listener once pointed out, I'm not a coder. I can't at least code even, and I just leech off the rest of you.
I remember that.
So
mail.
I felt I should justify
mail
my
with
existence.
That. Right. Good work. Good work. And you picked Java.
Well, that's because that's useful for work.
Of course. Are you enjoying it?
Yeah, I do actually enjoy it, and I'm at the basic levels of what could go for any programming language, I realise. So yeah, no, I enjoy it. It's fun. Excellent. I just need to keep going this time.
Super. Mark, what about you? What have you been up to?
I've been having fun moving my boot and root partitions to a different hard drive.
Whoa,
and then trying to get it to boot off that hard drive.
Witchcraft.
Yeah, party hard, Mark.
Yeah.
Why?
Why are you moving partitions around? What kind of sorcery is this?
Basically, I need to replace the motherboard in my laptop, and my root and boot partitions were on an SSD, which is integrated into the motherboard. So if I'm going to switch to the motherboard, I need to have it not on the motherboard. So I had fun with that, and then it all worked, and then I deleted the old partitions and it stopped working. So I had to reinstall. More on that story later.
Can't wait.
Is this the same laptop you had to change a power component on?
Yes, which
recently?
lasted for about 2 months, and now it doesn't charge.
You should stick
all the
to
time.
software, mate. Really.
Yeah.
Moving on, Martin. What have you been up to?
I have been reacquainted with Open Media Vault. I'm moving one of my servers from an old installation of Open Media Vault to a new version of Open Media Vault, and I'm just being reminded how good it is and how much I love it.
What is it?
Yeah, what she said.
It's a Debian-based distribution which is specifically designed for NAS-type scenarios, but it's just brilliant. It's almost flawless in its execution. So it does everything you would expect a NAS to do, all the usual file sharing, but then it's got a few tricks up its sleeve, like ZFS or GlusterFS, or obviously, the RAID and LVMs and XFS and all of that stuff, but even things like SnapRAID and Greyhole. So just about every disk management utility you can imagine is in there, and an amazing community around it with plugins for just about everything you can imagine. So it's just a terrific tool, and I use this to run our Plex server in the house, and it's just terrific. I love it.
Awesome. Super stuff.
What have you been doing, Alan?
I had fun this week getting annoyed after last week's conversation about how terrible Firefox is and how fantastic Chrome is. I was getting annoyed this week as Chrome crept up to bite me, and it was terribly slow. I found my PC to be incredibly slow all the time, and it took a little bit of fiddling, and I realized what it was GPU rendering was turned off in Chrome. And as soon as I turned on GPU rendering, which I had to jump through a couple of stupid hoops to do, it is now lightning faster. Scrolling is lovely. It's not all jittery and horrible on my Intel laptop, and now it's much better.
Right.
And for the uninitiated, how do you tell if you've got GPU rendering enabled?
Open Chrome and scroll a bit, and if it's a bit jerky, then you probably haven't. If it's nice and smooth and buttery, then you probably have got GPU rendering.
I have a slight...
There is a thing you can do about ://GPU or something like that, and /flags, and these will tell you. And there's one of them that's got loads of red text on it that says, "Haha, you suck, you haven't got GPU rendering," and that's the one that tells you haven't got GPU rendering. And then you go to the other one and you flick a couple of switches and you turn it off and turn it on again, and then you have got GPU rendering and everything's great, and you stop complaining about Chrome again, which is good.
It is a bit black magic.
It is a bit silly, yes. But,
Yes.
you know, what can you do? They're computers. Should we get on with it?
Yep.
Yeah.
Now, as happens every once in a while, I had to reinstall Ubuntu recently on my laptop. Now, I had the foresight to divide up the various bits into different partitions. So I had my home partition, which I could keep and not reinstall. I just knew that when I was done with the reinstall, I would have to work out which apps I had installed and install them all again. So I did the install. That worked fine. Booted into it, logged in, and to my surprise, Telegram popped up. Now, Telegram's not part of the general Ubuntu install. I'd installed that separately. And then I realised that it was because Telegram is living in my home directory, not in the root partition or any of the folders in there. I then realised...
The actual installation of it?
Yeah. And it's been updating itself happily ever since I've installed it. And it just popped up as soon as I logged in because I've set it to launch on login. And I was able to chat on Telegram without having to do anything else. It then occurred to me that when I installed Steam, all of my Steam games are still there because they also installed to my home directory. And this made me think, have we been doing it all wrong for years? Like, I always think, oh, Debian packages are brilliant. They, sort out the dependencies and you don't have to worry about where it goes. But then, wouldn't it be better if everything just lived in your home directory and with all of your settings, and then when you reinstalled, you've still got everything?
2 words. Multi-user.
No, okay. Yes, that's a good point. But how many... Right, each of us have a laptop, right?
Yep.
Uh-huh.
And how many other people use your laptop?
3. 2.
Oh. Well, that's a terrible example. Okay.
Just me on mine.
Exactly.
That's me on
Cats? How are your cats going to tweet from your laptop? Or have they got their own phones?
Yeah, that's a good point.
So
I just give them a different profile in Chrome.
I suspect that there are, a fair few people out there who have a machine which is only used by them, or have certain apps on their machine which are only used by them.
So far in the sample, we've got 50% of the population.
But it also...
Continue with your argument, Mark.
As I was thinking about this, I then got thinking about perhaps more personal devices, such as phones. And I started wondering, how does Ubuntu for the phone handle this? And how will Ubuntu handle this in the future?
Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, in the past, if we look back to how we did it in the past, Software Center, that tool that everyone seems to hate, had an option in there that would synchronize the package lists that you had installed on one machine to another machine. So you sign into your Ubuntu One account, and it keeps a track of the things you've got installed. So then the theory is you reinstall the machine in the way that you did, due to hardware failure or whatever. Then you log back into Ubuntu Software Center and you press the button to, put back all my stuff. And because Software Center is already pre-installed, isn't it, Martin? It's there to enable you to do that.
I'm sorry, I tuned out when someone mentioned Software Center. What are we talking about?
And that's what happens on Android if you install another Android device,
Android has a number of ways of doing this that are really, really nice. And if you've still got the old device and the new device, if they've got NFC, you can put them back to back, and it will load it will do it from the cloud. It knows that's a valid device, and you authenticate your keys and your codes and all that kind of stuff. But all you got to do is touch the 2 devices back to back, and that's about as hard as it gets. Whereas on iOS, they you back up the list of apps that you've got to the cloud, to iCloud, and then when you get a new device, as I did last week for my mother-in-law, her phone broke, so I went to the Apple store for her, took the phone in. He turned the phone on and said, "Oh yeah, you've got a backup. That's all good." Got a new one out the box, turned it on, and it logged in, and it all just started restoring everything. So there are precedents. Other people have done this, solved this problem. But differently to the way that we did it in the past in, similar, but not quite the same way that we did it in the past with the desktop. I don't know how we'll do it in the future on the phone and the desktop, but something like that would be good.
Yeah, I mean, because potentially, I mean, it made me think about how our systems actually come together. I mean, the reason I thought about the phone is because I realised that what you've got when you install Ubuntu is basically this base system image, but we each install our own things on top. So to an extent, the multi-user situation might not even be that much of a problem, because each user is going to use their own on top of what the base system provides, like, your web browser, Office suite, perhaps. You're going to have your own few specialist apps which you're going to want on top, and if you happen to want the same one that another user on your computer does, it's not going to be that much of a problem to have that one installed twice.
So the way Ubuntu Phone does it with click packages, is it was always designed in a way that two different people on the same device. The theory would be a tablet, a tablet that's on the coffee table in the house, where, multiple members of the family might pick it up, and you might use it to watch YouTube or iPlayer, and one of the kids might pick it up to play Minecraft or something. But every so often there's an overlap where they will want to watch YouTube and you will want to play Minecraft or something. Yeah. So the way Click was designed is that you could have people sharing apps. So I install Minecraft, and then my son picks up the tablet, logs into his profile, he installs Minecraft. There's only one copy of Minecraft on the system, but potentially he could install a different version, and he could install a different version, and that would be different from the version that I've got. So you don't have to have the same version of the same app. It's not in your home directory, it's in a different directory, but that's just an implementation detail. I mean, you're talking about it being in your home directory because that's the thing that you happen to have siloed from root and boot and everything else on a separate disk. But it doesn't have to be that. It could be somewhere else in it, but for us, it's in opt. So it's possible that those kind of things could be done where you just synchronize a list of packages for each user, and then, when a new device is enabled, you press a button and it goes to the cloud and says, this is a new device. What did he have previously? And, just download and install them. And if someone else logs onto that same device, they get a different set of apps.
Yeah. And I mean, is the fact that, the current systems that we use are based on RPM and Deb, and they are designed to splat files into user lib, some into user bin, and you've not necessarily got that on a different partition. Do we actually need to move to something like Snappy or Click packages for this to be a viable option going forward? Or, is this something that we could do now if we were just a bit more clever about how we set up our installs?
Well, I think this is what a lot of people are moving to. I don't think it's going to be an overnight switch. People are moving to on not just on Ubuntu, but on Fedora and with Docker and CoreOS. People are moving to having your applications in containers, and if that application is in a container, and you get a system update that updates the underlying ones and zeros at the very bottom of the stack, your applications aren't touched. And if those applications are in containers, which are effectively read-only images which you got from a store and you signed into that store, then potentially when you get a new device or a second device, you could sign into that store and re-get, in the same way that you do on Android or iOS or whatever else, you could potentially implement the same kind of detail. We haven't done it in Ubuntu Phone yet. It's like one of the things on the long list of things we need to do. But it's something that could be done. I'm just loath. I wouldn't do it on the desktop. I know it's one of those things that's a pain to reinstall all your stuff. But whenever I talk to people who reinstall their system, a lot of them seem to it's like cathartic to just wipe and install everything from scratch.
Yeah.
And not have all that stuff that they previously had. And then maybe discover in 3 weeks, oh yeah, I didn't install VLC and now I actually need it. Or, I don't have that thing installed. Well, I never really used it anyway. I'm sure there's a load of stuff on my laptop that I never actually used. And some people will be horrified by that. The idea that, there's software there that is lurking on my hard drive and that I'm getting updates for that I never actually use. Yeah, I would imagine, yeah, that would be frustrating for some people, but I don't care.
So while doing some research, knowing that what the topic was going to be, I have found a tool that you can use on Ubuntu desktops that can solve some of these problems today. And I'm sure this is a tool that lots of other people have heard of and used in the past, but this was brand new to me, but it's absolutely fantastic. It's called Aptic. And there's a PPA for it, for all of the versions, and this is developed by Tony George. And the way this works is when you start it up, there's a number of backup and restore options. There's a backup option for backing up the PPAs that you've got enabled. There's another one for backing up your apt cache. And the most important one, I think, is one for backing up your software selection, so the packages you have installed. But what's quite nice about this is that when you back up your PPAs or your software selections, it knows which ones were part of the distribution and which ones were installed subsequently. So you can make a list of the software that you want to restore onto your system, and it goes and apt-get installs the bits that you've, installed after the fact. And there's a couple more options for backing up your application settings, all of your dot directories and things like that. And I have a solution for that I use already. And then also for backing up your themes and icons. So there's a nice tool here that you can actually periodically back up the state of your machine. And then when you come to reinstall, you can restore those software selections and the PPAs to get your system rapidly backed to how your last one was. And I think that's quite a neat tool.
Is that what's it called? And is there a PPA for it? And does it back itself up?
Yes. Yes.
Who watches the watch?
Yes, to all of those. It's called Aptic, APTIK. And yes, there's a PPA for it. If you search for
is it current, is it actively developed?
Yes, yeah, it has. The last upload was in May this year, and it's for all of the LTS versions and 14.10 and 15.04 and even a 15.10 version. So yes, all up to date and works really well. Now, one feature here is that it backs up your application settings, and you can choose which dot files to back up in there, or dot directories even. And what I've been doing for some time is I use a little utility called Macup, which you can find in GitHub, and it was developed for backing up Macs to a Dropbox folder. And some years ago, I contributed the necessary bits and bobs to support Linux, and you create a series of profiles for backing up your dot files and your dot directories, and it doesn't just have to back up to Dropbox now. It can back up to a number of cloud providers and also to an arbitrary directory somewhere. And I use that to sort of simulate like roaming profiles that you used to have do have on Windows.
Nice.
So I back up my roaming directory, which has got all of my symlinks to all of my important stuff. And I have that synced with SyncThing. So that means I can go to any one of my machines. And because SyncThing works on ARM as well as the PC, I can install SyncThing on my Raspberry Pi 2 and then restore, sync my roaming directory with SyncThing and then do a Macup restore and get all of my dot configurations back. So the way I like it. So every machine I go to is configured and set up exactly the same way within seconds.
So those symlinks you mentioned, what creates those?
The Macup
it
does.
Actually
so
creates
it
those.
has.
Oh, right.
Yes, it does. Yeah. So you create a file, let's say nano.cfg, and you basically have a stanza to say these are the dot directories and the dot files that you should back up and restore, and it automatically creates and restores that data.
Nice. That's really cool.
Yeah, it is a nice little utility, and I think alongside Aptic here, which can do something similar. And there's another utility here that Tony develops, which looks interesting, and it's Timeshift, which is a backup utility, and he appears to have two versions of this, one that uses rsync and another which appears to use B3FS snapshots for backing up your home directory. So he's got sort of a full suite of utilities
and the
for
time shift one
backing up and
is
restoring.
like the Mac, time machine.
I
think.
don't know. I don't
with
know
a name
because
like
I don't
that,
know
it
enough
sounds
about
like it's
OS
supposed to be a bit
10.
like that. Yeah, but yeah, I think Tony's got you covered, Mark.
Excellent. I'll definitely be looking into those.
I think he does.
Especially if I ever have to reinstall again, which hopefully now won't happen for quite a while.
Well, I'm thinking you should probably do it now rather than when you think about when you've got to reinstall. That would make sense, wouldn't it?
And also, Mark, plotting a trend of your recent luck, I would say it's almost certain you're going to be doing this in about 4 weeks' time.
Thanks. That makes me feel so much better.
So I'd be interested to hear from our listeners, if you email show@ubuntupodcast.org, what you do about backups, how you deal with backing up, and any pitfalls you've discovered along the way. Thanks for that. And now it's time for Command Line Love. I can't do the
It's
voice.
supposed to sound sexy.
It did.
Sorry.
Oh, maybe not. This one's from one of our listeners, Nathaniel Olander, and he talks to us about Screen. So GNU Screen, that you've probably used before, is a great tool to multiplex lots of terminal windows inside one terminal window, and also a really handy tool for leaving something running on a remote machine and then disconnecting and it still being there when you come back. Well, one of the things you do with Screen is you just type Screen and then the command you want to run, and it starts running inside a Screen. But if you do that a lot, and you end up with lots of different things running on a system, it can be fun trying to figure out which of the screens the thing you want to go back to is running in. And so there's this useful command line option that Screen has, which is -s. And with -s, you can specify a name for the screen. So you can do Screen -s and then give it a name like Mutt, for example. And then inside that, you run Mutt. And then you can do another one, Screen -s ERC, and then inside that one, run ERC. And then later on, when you come to want to reconnect, you can use Screen -r, and it will reconnect, and then you put the name of the one you want to reconnect to. So you can do Screen -r Mutt, or Screen -r ERC, and it will connect to the right one, which is quite cool. And I have used this quite a lot, and it's really handy.
Excellent.
However, what I use instead now is I use Byobu, Byobu, and Byobu, you can rename the screens. I think you could probably do this in Screen anyway, actually. If you do Control-A, the default key press is Control-A and then double quotes. If you do Control-A and then double quotes, I think, that lists all the screen windows you've got within a screen session. But it's really weird. I can't remember how you do it because I just do it automatically with my keyboard. But there is a keyboard
I'm pretty
shortcut
sure that everything that Byobu does, I think, is just the functionality of Screen, but packaged up in a very handy way.
Oh, I've just done it. There you go. I couldn't tell you what it was until I just switched to a Byobu screen and did it. It's you do Control-A and then a lowercase a, and that allows you to set the name of the window. So you could have a screen session that's got a name, but then have lots of windows within it that all have names as well. And then you can use Control-A quotes to list them all. Cool. And that's awesome. So thank you, Nathaniel, for that awesome command line love.
And now it's time for some of all your lovely feedback.
And there is so much as well.
There is a lot here, and I haven't included it all. So, John emailed us on show@ubuntupodcast.org.
Is the podcast currently being transcribed? I came across a wiki article, podcast transcription on ubuntu.com, which was last updated in 2008, and it talks about the Ubuntu UK podcast. Regarding volumes, any chance you can bump the bass volume for the quieter speakers? I listen whilst commuting by train and tube, using just one earphone so I can hear the announcements, etc. I usually have to put the volume at 100% to hear people. if I had a 125% option, I would need that to hear some of the people on the podcasts. But for the introduction and the music bits, I need to reduce it quickly to 50%.
Regarding transcription first. No, it's not as far as we know. But if anyone is interested in doing so, please do and let us know.
Go for it.
Yeah. Regarding volumes, we usually aim to have the music quieter than the talking, so hopefully that shouldn't be a problem in general. And we do edit it with listening in two speakers in mind. Unfortunately, unless we put out a separate mono version as well as the regular stereo version, we can't completely please everybody, but we are working on making the levels more consistent, so hopefully things will improve over time.
Oh, I see. That's why when he's talking about the quieter speakers, what he's actually meaning is the speakers who are talking in his other ear that he doesn't have in his ear. Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Probably.
Yeah.
Yes.
That makes sense, because we pan
And some
left and
Yes.
right a little bit.
pan people
exactly,
ever
because
so
that way
slightly.
it sounds
Yeah.
more like we are in a room talking from
Which
different
we
places.
are. Don't
And it
lie.
means yes, of course. Sorry, the magic of the internet, smoke and mirrors.
Yes.
Theatre of the mind.
Yes. So Joe Ressington tweeted us on @Ubuntu Podcast.
Interesting that the Ubuntu podcast folks are pragmatic about browsers rather than caring much about software freedom. Note that Joe pragmatically tweeted us from Android.
Yeah, this is
Just
probably,
saying.
having a pop at me, basically, because I use Chrome.
Well, I think we all said
So
that.
do I.
Yeah, we all said that we use Chrome to some extent. I use it for watching Netflix,
As
and
do
I
I.
don't think any of us particularly said that the reasons that we keep Firefox around is because it's free software. To be fair, thinking about it, I do, and I didn't make that point, so well called out.
Yeah, true. Although, to be fair, I'm just telling you what I use. You can use whatever you like. I'm not telling you should use Chrome, just telling you that I use Chrome. So,
And the only reason that I use Chrome is to watch, proprietary DRM encumbered media.
You software hate, you freedom hater, you.
Yes.
So Steve Body, the GTK is difficult guy that we mentioned in episode 25, left us a couple of comments on the website.
he says, thanks for the kind words. I wasn't really being modest, by the way. For me, a developer can write a bubble sort without using Google, and his brain shouldn't explode when reading the Wikipedia page on bee trees. Well,
I'm screwed. I don't know what either of those things are.
perfectly describe my brain. You might be interested that we actually have made a release, although there's a little problem with the tarball right now. Details on Launchpad, which is launchpad.net/Terminator, and on his blog, which is gnometerminator.blogspot.com. And further update, the tarball is now fixed. Why did I read that out?
Right.
It's brilliant. Well done. Thank you, Steve, for
I have to
letting us
say,
know.
my definition of a good developer is someone who knows where to look up what they're going to need, not someone who has it all in their head.
Exactly.
I agree. I fixed a bug today in an app on Ubuntu phone that I've never touched and never looked at the code for, and someone pointed out it was broken, and I went and read the documentation and fixed it. So yes, I do not consider myself by any stretch a developer, but I changed 2 lines and fixed it. So yay me.
Yeah, you. @Brother on Twitter tweeted us.
Or Iceweasel Firefox, the great web suggests at Ubuntu Podcast to use using unload tab. Oh my goodness!
Sorry, I should have edited that
I think
more.
someone suggests. Yeah, that needed a little bit of massaging. There we go. So I think we're being encouraged to have a look at unload tab for Firefox. So I'm going to open that now and read more about that
related
later.
to that,
We'll put a link to
Chrome. Later versions of Chrome are now going to unload tabs from memory, aren't they? If they're not currently being used, and when you restart the browser, it's going to load them in the order in which you last used them to try and focus on the things you probably want to open.
I really hope that's configurable, because I hate the idea of that. The order that my tabs are arranged in, it might be pseudo-chronological, but you kind of get used to those
Oh no,
tabs
I don't think it's the
in
order
certain
that
places.
I don't think it's the order that they appear on the screen. It's the order that it loads the content into the tab.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. That sounds more acceptable, far more acceptable.
Okay, it has the Martin seal of approval. Do it, Google.
Yeah, I like that. Yeah.
So several people left us essays about browsers on our website, ubuntupodcast.org, and we thank you for those, but because Stephen Woods doesn't require us to do any editing, here's his.
Firefox's killer feature for me is grouped tabs. It keeps my millions of tabs manageable, plus the only tabs it will load on startup are the pinned ones. Generally, I only use Chrome for Google services or sites that insist on still using Flash for videos.
And if you want to know more about what the listeners... There were about 5 different people put long comments on the website, and they're all there if you want to go and have a look.
Excellent.
Yeah, it was cool to get so much feedback. Najri Majstar also makes a good point about NPA, PI, and Java.
If your banking site uses Java, or you learn to love iDRAC, or insert your favorite plugin that uses NPAPI, then Chrome, as of current stable 45, is a no-go.
If your banking site uses Java, get a new bank.
Uses Java for what?
Exactly. What could they possibly need to use Java for?
Right.
I think the point that's being made here is that Chrome has now removed the NPAPI support completely, so those plugins that use that protocol are no longer supported, and the common use is Java plugins for remote terminal applications for server management. I'm familiar with iDRAC and things like it. For example, I've had to connect to my little HP microservers to their equivalent of iDRAC, and I needed the Java plugin for that to work.
Oh, I see, for the plugins. Okay, Enrique somehow contacted us.
I think it was on the website something.
Yeah, I think so. I didn't write it down.
Another great show. So you on the other side of the pond don't know what West Wing is. Well, 3 out of 4 of us don't anyway. And he's glad to hear that Ubuntu Mate is third worldable. Oh, damn it. I nearly went 2 shows without mentioning the distribution that can't be named.
And at Third Wiki tweeted us disapprovingly about our voicemail.
Yes. We don't really have much time to go into it, but basically we have a very old message on our voicemail. I assume that's what it's talking about, but there wasn't really enough detail to work out what the problem was there.
My reaction was, do we still have voicemail?
We still have a voicemail number.
Do we?
Yeah.
Does it?
Yes.
Does anyone listen to it?
Well, you don't have to. It doesn't.
It emails us.
Yeah, it's not like there's an answer phone that someone sat next to and pressing like boop, and having to press the buttons.
Oh, I'm disappointed.
And having to put a D90 tape in it every so often. You know, it's not that. It actually emails us the audio files as WAV files. So yeah,
cool.
It should still work.
Modern technology.
Isn't it marvellous? And finally, Laura.
Bitfolk are awesome. Go get your virtual hosting from them.
Yes.
Bitfolk provide our VPS where we host our website and our Mumble server and deliver all of our shows. And it's been getting a real hammering this season. And they've been kind enough to upgrade us to a new server on their new SSD-backed infrastructure and give us lots more bandwidth just as we needed it. And that's very nice of them. They don't do it so that we plug them. They do it because they're nice people.
And because they're nice people, we plug them.
Yes. So if you want a VPS, buy it from them.
Yes.
Yeah.
Is that the end of the feedback?
Yep.
It is.
We love getting your feedback, so please send it to us. Even the pointlessly mean stuff makes us laugh a little bit. If it's short, tweet us on @Ubuntu Podcast. If it's less short, but please no essays, email us on show@ubuntupodcast.org. Or you can leave a comment on the relevant show notes on our website, ubuntupodcast.org.
That's all for episode 28. We'll be back next week when we'll have more news, comment, and discussion. Thank you very much for listening.
Can't wait.
Yes, that was all smooth as butter, wasn't it?
Oh, that was lovely.
Yes.
Awesome.
Almost professional.
Yeah.
Oh, do we get paid then?
Almost. We almost get paid.
Oh, that's awkward.
Whoops. Yes. What are we doing next time? We should get some interviews. Let us know who
We should.
Yes.
Yes. Or review or
Yes.
something. See you next time.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.